Hey guys, what's going on? It's Superfighterman6 here, and today we're going to be doing an engineer guide for Battlefield 3. Obviously, this video is going to be using the HK53 or the G53, depending on what platform you're playing on. And yeah, it's going to be obviously about the engineer kit, which is my favorite kit, just because the greatest thing about the engineer kit is that it never really leaves you in a position where you can't win the fight. If you're running an assault kit or a recon kit, or even depending on what you choose, a support kit, depending on what equipment you choose, you come up against a vehicle, even if it's just a jeep, you pretty much have no defense against it. But that problem just doesn't happen with the engineer kit. You always have either like your rocket launcher, your AT mines, or your repair tool, or whatever you have, and they can all damage vehicles. So that's the thing that I like about it so much, is that I don't like dying and not really having a chance to defend myself. And with the engineer kit, in terms of vehicles at least, that problem is solved. If you are half decent with rocket launcher, it's not really that hard, but for long range shots maybe. And if you can learn to just slow down your shooting and hit the guys with your carbine, they can still be pretty effective at pretty much any range. Obviously they drop off in damage at longer ranges, but that's not really too big of a problem if you can get a few shots in before they see you or whatever. So we're going to start off here with the weapons, just like in my medic assault video. And if you want to go to my channel and check that out, I'd greatly appreciate it. So we're going to start off with the weapons here. The first two that you're going to have, the starting weapons, are the M4A1 and the AKS-74U. They're both pretty good guns. A lot of people seem to favour the M4A1. It does have a higher fire rate than the AKS, but if you are going to use a full auto over pretty good range, it has a pretty big muzzle flash. So if you're using a full auto, especially with a 4x ACOG or a 3.4 zoom, it's going to be hard to keep on target. Even though it doesn't have that much recoil, it's still a little bit of a problem. And the AKS certainly doesn't seem to have as much recoil, which is very, very useful. So just before we really get started, all of my carbines and pretty much all my weapons, other than sniper rifles and LMGs, I use whatever side I want. Usually it's a 3.4, but whatever one suits that weapon. And I use a suppressor in the foregrip, just because that's what I use, that's what I'm comfortable with, and it's easy for me. So the M4A1 has quite a high fire rate, pretty decent recoil if you know how to use it, which I evidently don't. And yeah, it's pretty decent. The AKS, like I said, lower recoil. I think it still has the same damage, and yeah, it's also a pretty good gun. Obviously you don't really get much of a choice when you start off, but that shouldn't last very long. After a few games using the engineer kit, you're gonna off the Scar H, and the Scar H is probably the most uncarbine-y of the carbines, I would say. It has only 20 bullets in the mag, and it has a higher damage than all of the other carbines and most of the other assault rifles as well. And it can be pretty effective. I say in one of my other videos, I don't really like weapons that only have a 20 bullet clip, but I do have a service style with all of the carbines. I know what I'm talking about here. Sorry, I'm a little bit sick, but I know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about this, at least pretty much for the weapons. So I do have a service style on the Sky H. I can say it's pretty good for what it is. Its hip fire is pretty decent, and those 20 bullets, unless you come up against 3 or 4 guys, they get the job done. I often get random double sprays with the Sky H, just because you just shoot 10 or 15 bullets into the guys and they just both drop with only a couple hit markers. So it's a pretty good gun, especially if you're looking for a longer range option, because obviously the PDWs aren't really long range either, the shotguns aren't really long range. So looking for a long range option with the carbines, with the engineer kit. That's a pretty good way to go, this guy H. The next gun, the A91, is a lot of people calling it overpowered at the start, and that hasn't really gone anywhere. No one really calls it overpowered anymore. Don't know whether they patched it or whether people have just fallen out with it. But it's probably, you know, the most pure carbine out of all of them. It has, you know, it definitely has a lot of damage, you know, a very high rate of fire up close, and it drops away very quickly when you get into long range engagements. So, you know, if you're up close with the A91, you're pretty much going to win every single battle, unless the other guy has a shotgun or another A91. And yeah, you're pretty much going to win every battle, but you have to be cautious. You have to be, you know, aware of where you're going, and to make sure you're not going down any really long sight lines, and you're not going to be spotted out in the opening by someone with, you know, an assault rifle or, you know, a longer range carbine or whatever that will, you know, outmatch you at those long ranges. The M4 is pretty much the burst variant of the M4A1. It's just a 3-round burst version. Can help to negate the recoil muzzle flash problem with the M4A1, but, you know, other than the fact that it's usable by both factions, both the Russian and the you know, American army, there's not really that much difference between the M4 and the M4A1. They're both, the M4 still has a high fire rate. You know, it's still pretty good. It's still pretty much the same weapons, obviously. So, you know, if you're on the Russian side and you really like the M4A1, might as well give the M4 a shot. Next gun, G36C, was, you know, my quote-unquote favourite weapon, you know, for a while there. I had 300 something kills with it. Well, I still do have 300 something kills with it. Pretty good, high fire rate, low recoil, all the stuff that you look for in a weapon. Over range, it still is pretty good because it's low recoil, but up close it still has a high enough fire rate to get the job done a lot of the time. And yeah, it's pretty good. It's one of, if not the best all around carbines. You know, you're not going to get trapped with it, you're not going to get caught with it, and just have absolutely no chance of winning. And it's very helpful for pretty much any situation. Another good all round carbine. Next on the HK53. Haven't used a lot, but I would say it's probably the worst carbine in the game, but that's not really that big of an issue. All the carbines are pretty much really, really good, but it is the worst. It has very, very little recoil though. You know, I used it with a red dot sight, which I don't normally do with weapons. Usually I prefer, you know, 3.4 ACOG, but I used it with the red dot sight, and I found it had like ridiculously low recoil, but you know, it also has a low fire rate, so that's, you know, balanced out, evened out, and, you know, it might be useful if you're going across the map, but it definitely doesn't have that, you know, usual carbine, I'm up close and I'm going to smash you sort of feel to it. So, you know, it's alright if you're used to the assault rifles, then, you know, it might be a pretty good option, but really, it's not the best option for a carbine. If you're looking for a really carbine, it's probably not the best. But, you know, it's worth a shot, and if you like it, well then you like it. And, you know, it's really personal preference. I'm just here to give you a few guidelines onto, you know, the general outline of what these weapons are. So the next one, the G53 or the HK53, is what I'm using now. You can see in this video. I said before, G36C might be the best all round. Well, if it's not, this one is definitely the one to take it over. It has a slower fire rate than a lot of the other carbines, but it certainly has a lot less recoil, and it just feels good to me. I don't know why. I can't pick out one key aspect to it, but all around it's pretty good. It's going to get the job done. You know, that's what I look for in a weapon anyway. I look for flexibility, and, you know, something that will serve me well in a variety of situations, and that goes doubly for carbines. You know, that can be a rare trade amongst carbines, but, you know, the HK53 really, it just seems to get the job done a lot for me, and yeah, doesn't really have any faults, doesn't have any problems with it, and it's a pretty handy gun to have. So the last gun that you're going to get is the QBZ 95B. Now this one might be a bit hard to get. It's the second one after the G53 that you get from the back to car can assignment sort of mechanic thing. And the hard thing about this, it has two really difficult things they have to get. One of them is to kill destroy a tank or a vehicle with your repair torch, repair tool thing. And the other one is 50 rocket launcher kills or 50 anti-tank launcher kills. I'm not sure if the javelin works with that or if it's just the RPG and the small. But I shoot my RPG in small because that's what I'm used to. Now to get the repair torch thing, there's a few sneaky ways to do it other than just running up to a tank and trying to repair torch it. But you can, if you just disable it, like disable a vehicle with a repair torch. You obviously, and nobody else on your team does any damage to it, and it just sits there disabled and eventually blows up, then you're gonna get the destroy for that, and that's gonna count to that repair torch thing. Also, I saw on the forums a MAV or a AOD bot also count towards that. It might be a little bit hard, but sometimes you see those MAVs that are just on the ground. That, I don't know, they seem like they're disabled, but I don't know, I don't really use the MAV. Don't really use recon at all for that matter. So, I don't know what's up with that. But if you see one of them, instead of shooting it and running on, pulling out your repair torch and getting it that way is pretty useful. Those things obviously have a lot less health than normal vehicles. So, that might be an option. And with the rocket launcher kills, I think that's where I'm gonna be alright. If you're just gonna hit me with an RPG or a small, you might as well be going for those 50 rocket launcher kills, because it would just take forever to try and get that. I suppose legitimately just killing tanks and stuff. That would just take forever. So I just went into Operation Metro and just started to destroy people with my RPG and destroy people with my small. But whatever you want to do, however you want to get that, is up to you. But it will take a long time to try and do it just with tanks, just with vehicles, because people get out when they get disabled and stuff. But after you do all that, the QBZ is a pretty decent weapon. It has a slower fire rate than a lot of the other ones, but that doesn't really affect it. That just gives it, an overall less recoil and stuff. And it really, really is a very good weapon. I think it only took me a couple of games to get the service stuff for it. After I first got it, I only just got it, and then, the first game got 20-30 kills with it or whatever. It's pretty good. It's a lot like the HK53, the G53 in terms of how the recoil goes with it and how it, just how it handles. It doesn't have an insane amount of recoil. It doesn't have an insane high fire rate or any other, ridiculous attributes. Just a pretty good all-round gun, and it's a pretty good weapon if you just. If you're just like me, just a normal assault rifle guy, put an assault rifle in my hands and, I'll smash you. If that's what you're looking for in a carbine, then the QBZ might be the way to go. It's a little bit off compared to all the other carbines, it's a little bit different, but if you get used to it, if you learn to use it well, it can be a pretty good weapon. So now I've talked about all the weapons in this. In terms of the other side of the engineer, which is obviously vehicle combat, both aiding your team's vehicles and destroying other team's vehicles, it's pretty straightforward. Rocket launcher into the tank is going to eventually kill it. There's two factors that decide damage. The most obvious one is whether you're at the back side or the front. The tank has more armor at the front, less armor at the back, and the sides are somewhere in between. But less obvious is if you hit the tank at a 9-degree flat angle, it will do more damage rather than, a glancing blow. So that's how you're going to destroy that. The javelin's not the best alternative unless you have someone in your squad or on your team that you're actually talking with who's going to use the SOFLAM for the recon kit. Then the javelin becomes like 20 times more effective, and that's what you want to be using if you have someone like that on your team. AT mines can be a pretty good option, but the repair torch, I think, is your best way to go. Helps you repair friendly vehicles back after they become disabled. And you can also repair your own vehicles, which is a massive help. you know, this video is going down, all I'm going to say is, if you disable an enemy vehicle and the guy jumps out of it, pull out your repair torch and get it back up and running, because that tank isn't going to respawn for the enemy, and it's just another tank that you have or another vehicle that you have that they don't. Can be a very very useful thing for your team to have, turns the tides of battles. Just a quick little tip there. But overall, the engineer is a pretty good class to have, pretty good class to use. You can see there, it's my best class by miles. So, you know, it's probably one of the best all-round classes. Not going to get stuck with it. Pretty good option. I'd recommend you try it out if you haven't already. You probably have. You know, whatever. Have a go, and I'll see you later.